AI systems can feel like they appear in an organization the way new apps appear on a phone, with people using them before anyone is sure who approved them or who is responsible when something goes wrong. That feeling is exactly why governance matters, and it is also why ownership and accountability have to be crystal clear from the start. When brand new learners hear the word governance, they often imagine paperwork, meetings, and slow decisions that get in the way of progress. In reality, good governance is what prevents confusion, panic, and blame when AI decisions create real-world harm. If you can say, without hesitation, who owns the system, who owns the risks, who approves changes, and who answers questions from leadership, then you have already reduced a large part of the danger. The goal here is simple but demanding. Make responsibility so unambiguous that people can act quickly, consistently, and fairly, even when the situation is stressful. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. To build that kind of clarity, you first have to understand what governance is trying to control and why AI raises the stakes. Governance is the set of rules and decision habits that decide what is allowed, what is not allowed, and who has the authority to decide. With AI, the outputs can influence decisions about people, money, safety, and reputation, sometimes in ways that are difficult to predict. A key misconception is that governance is only about compliance, as if it exists just to satisfy regulators or auditors. In truth, governance is about preventing accidental harm, limiting avoidable surprises, and ensuring the organization can explain itself when questioned. AI changes quickly, and it can be copied, reused, or connected to new data sources with very little friction, so weak governance turns into fast-moving chaos. When governance is strong, it does not block useful work. It defines safe lanes, clear approvals, and responsible ownership so work can move without guessing. A practical way to begin is to separate three ideas that beginners often blend together: ownership, accountability, and responsibility. Ownership means a named person or team has the authority and obligation to manage something over time, not just to build it once. Accountability means that when outcomes are reviewed, someone is answerable for whether the system met expectations and followed rules, even if they did not personally do every task. Responsibility is the day-to-day work, the hands-on actions that many different people may perform. In a healthy governance model, these are not left vague, because vagueness creates gaps where problems hide. If an AI system produces an incorrect recommendation, you do not want a room full of people saying they thought someone else had it covered. The moment you can point to clear ownership and accountability, you can start building repeatable controls that match the risk. Next, it helps to define what exactly needs an owner, because AI governance is not only about the model itself. There is the business purpose, meaning why the system exists and what decisions it supports. There is the data that trains or feeds the system, which can carry privacy, quality, and bias risks. There is the model design, including what it is optimized for and what it is not. There is the deployment environment where it runs, including who can access it and how it is monitored. There is also the change process, meaning how updates are proposed, reviewed, and approved. Each of these elements can have different owners, but they should connect into a single chain of accountability that makes sense to non-technical leaders. When beginners hear that there can be multiple owners, they sometimes worry it will get complicated, but the trick is to be explicit about the boundaries and handoffs so the complexity stays manageable. An important teaching point is that governance should be tied to real decisions, not just documentation. AI governance answers questions like, who can approve a new use case that affects customers and under what conditions? Who can decide to pause a system if unexpected harm appears? Who has the authority to accept a risk? And who must be consulted before that acceptance is valid? Who decides what counts as an acceptable error rate or an acceptable level of unfairness in outcomes? Who approves the data sources? And who can reject a source even if it is convenient? If these decisions are not mapped to named roles, people fall back on informal power, such as whoever speaks loudest in meetings or whoever built the system. That approach is risky because it is inconsistent, and it often ignores the perspectives that matter most, like legal, privacy, safety, or customer impact. When you design unambiguous accountability, you also need to account for the fact that AI systems often cross organizational boundaries. A model might be built by one team, trained on data maintained by another, and used by a third group to support decisions. This is where confusion becomes common, because each group may assume another group has already checked the risks. Good governance creates a shared map of the life cycle, showing how an idea becomes a deployed system and who signs off at each stage. Beginners should think of this like building a bridge, where many specialists contribute, but a clear authority ensures the bridge meets standards and is safe to use. If a crack appears, there is no debate about who coordinates the response, because that role was defined from the beginning. That same certainty is what you want for AI, especially when real-world consequences can arrive quickly. A helpful mental model is to treat AI as a product that requires ongoing stewardship, not a one-time project. Projects end, but products live, evolve, and create long-term risk. If you treat AI as a project, the people who understood the design may move on, and the knowledge about limitations may disappear. If you treat it as a product, you build routines for review, monitoring, incident handling, and improvement. Product thinking naturally pushes you to assign an owner who stays accountable for outcomes over time. That owner is not just a technical leader. It should be someone who understands the purpose and the impact. A system that affects human outcomes should not be governed only by technical convenience, because the most important questions are often ethical, legal, and operational. Unambiguous accountability means the product owner role has enough authority to require fixes, demand evidence, and escalate concerns when needed. Clear governance also depends on using consistent language for what the system is and what it is allowed to do. Many governance failures begin with a mismatch between how people describe the system and what it actually does. One group might call it a helper tool, while another relies on it as if it is a decision engine. If you want accountability, you have to define the system's intended use, its allowed use, and its prohibited use in a way that regular people can understand. Intended use is the purpose it was designed for, such as summarizing customer feedback to help staff see trends. Allowed use is what is acceptable within policy, such as internal analysis with approved data. Prohibited use is what is not acceptable, such as using outputs to make decisions about individuals without proper controls. When these boundaries are written and communicated clearly, it becomes easier to hold the right people accountable for staying within them. From there, you can connect ownership and accountability to risk categories that beginners can grasp. Some risks are about harm to people, such as unfair outcomes or misleading advice. Some are about harm to the organization, such as legal exposure, reputational damage, or security incidents. Some are about harm to customers, such as privacy violations or poor service decisions. A governance model should name who is accountable for each category, because different expertise is needed to judge them. Technical teams can assess performance and reliability, but legal teams assess compliance risks, and business leaders assess impact trade-offs. If everyone is accountable for everything, then no one is accountable for anything, because responsibility becomes diluted. The aim is not to create silos. It is to create clarity so decisions are made by the right people with the right input. That clarity also allows faster response during problems, because the escalation path is already understood. You also want governance that is realistic, because beginners sometimes imagine a perfect system that covers every scenario, and then feel stuck when reality is messy. Real governance focuses on repeatable decisions and clear exceptions, rather than endless rules. It defines what must happen every time, like an approval step for high-impact uses, and what can be handled with lighter oversight, like low-risk internal experiments with synthetic data. A good governance design also includes a way to revise rules when the world changes, because AI technology and regulations evolve. That revision process itself needs ownership, because otherwise governance becomes outdated and ignored. When governance is ignored, shadow use grows, and accountability becomes impossible because the organization cannot even track what is in use. Unambiguous accountability includes responsibility for visibility, meaning someone is accountable for knowing what AI systems exist and what they are doing. A frequent misconception is that accountability means blame, and that fear of blame will discourage innovation. In a mature approach, accountability is about learning and improvement, not punishment. People should be able to report issues without feeling they are risking their careers, especially when the issue was unintentional or based on a misunderstanding. Governance should set expectations that encourage early reporting and quick correction, because hiding problems makes them worse. That means leaders should be clear that accountability includes owning mistakes and fixing them, not finding scapegoats. Beginners can think of this like safety reporting in other fields, where the goal is to identify hazards early and prevent accidents. When governance is designed with that mindset, people are more willing to follow it, and the organization becomes safer over time. Unambiguous accountability becomes a support structure rather than a threat. To make governance practical, you should also consider how it fits into everyday work rather than existing as a separate universe. If approvals require endless steps, people will bypass them, which destroys visibility and accountability. If governance is too vague, people will interpret it differently, which creates inconsistent outcomes. The balance is achieved by defining a small number of clear decision points that match the level of risk. A low-risk AI feature might require a lightweight review to confirm data sources and intended use. A higher-risk feature that influences important outcomes might require formal review and sign-off from multiple roles. The key is that the decision point is predictable, the authority is known, and the evidence required is clear. When people know what is expected and why it matters, they are more likely to comply without resentment. Another important aspect is defining the line between internal accountability and external accountability. Internally, governance answers who approves and who fixes. Externally, governance answers who can explain the system to regulators, customers, partners, or executives. If a serious question arises, the organization needs a consistent voice that can speak to purpose, controls, limitations, and incident response. Without that, teams may give conflicting statements, which increases risk and damages trust. This is not about hiding information. It is about being accurate and consistent. Unambiguous accountability includes naming who has the authority to represent the organization's position and who provides supporting evidence. When those roles are unclear, people may either say too much, creating legal exposure, or say too little, creating distrust. Good governance prepares the organization to communicate responsibly under pressure. As the ideas come together, it helps to picture governance as a chain that links decisions to consequences and then back to improvement. AI systems need owners who can make decisions and accountable leaders who can accept or reject risk with clear rationale. They also need responsible teams who carry out reviews, monitoring, and updates in a consistent way. When something goes wrong, the chain should guide the response, showing who can pause the system, who investigates, who communicates, and who approves changes before restarting. When something goes right, the chain supports learning because outcomes and metrics can be reviewed and used to strengthen future decisions. This is how governance becomes a living system instead of a binder on a shelf. By making ownership and accountability unambiguous, you reduce confusion, increase safety, and make it possible to scale AI use without losing control. The big takeaway is that strong AI governance is less about complexity and more about clarity, because clarity is what prevents small problems from turning into crises. When beginners understand governance as a way to answer who decides, who owns, and who is accountable, it becomes easier to see why it matters even before any law or audit enters the picture. Clear ownership makes it possible to maintain systems over time, and clear accountability makes it possible to act decisively when risks appear. The best governance models are not designed to scare people into compliance. They are designed to make safe, consistent decisions the easiest path. As you continue through this course, keep returning to that simple test. If a problem happens tomorrow, can you name who owns it, who decides what to do, and who will prove the decision was responsible? When that answer is immediate and confident, governance is doing its job, and the organization is far better prepared to use AI responsibly at scale.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.